Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone attending today's webinar. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all for attending today's webinar. I'm Mike Adenovich, a Solutions Architect for Cireson. Along with me is Billy Wilson, also a Solutions Architect for Cireson, and your presenters for today's session or webinar. During this webinar, we're going to look at Service Manager 2016 performance and usability improvements, as well as an in-depth look at how Cireson can help your service manager migration with our new Lifecycle Management application. We're going to talk about that along with provide a demo on that Lifecycle Management application. I think everyone's going to like what they see with that. Who is Cireson? Well, those not familiar with Cireson, we started in 2012. Founded on a simple, powerful idea to be forward thinkers of all things Microsoft Cloud and System Center. Today, our value from the beginning remains the same. Keep it genuine, do the right thing, and listen to our customers. As a world leader in Microsoft Cloud and System Center, our mission is to make your working life more productive by bringing service and asset management together in a single platform. Just go over some housekeeping things real quick here. This is a non-interactive webinar, so please post any questions that you have in the GoToMeeting question panel. I believe that's on the right-hand side of your screen, and we will answer those during the Q&A at the end of the webinar here. If unable to answer any of those questions, we'll follow up via email. We do have your email from the registration. And again, thank you for registering and attending. Today's session is being recorded, and I'll place that up in about a day or two, if not sooner, out on Vimeo. So feel free to go out to vimeo.com, do a search on Cireson or Team Cireson, and you will find tons of Cireson recordings. I think there's about 140, 150, somewhere in that area. And what's nice about these is that these recordings are also technical how-tos, best practices, configurations, all kinds of good stuff. So please do go out there, review. Those are out there for your review and reference. I do encourage you to go out there and check out that site. It's a lot of great information out there. We're going to talk real quick. I just want to cover the agenda. I wanted to go over some Cireson announcements. They're pretty quick. Just wanted to touch upon those. Talk about what's new in Service Manager 2016. Most of you are probably well familiar with it, but I'm going to just briefly touch on that. We're going to talk about why migrate versus do a in-place upgrade. So we'll talk about the advantages to that. Once you decide to migrate, then we'll talk about 6 steps to a worry-free migration and how we can accomplish that, as I mentioned, with our Lifecycle Management app, which we will demonstrate for you later in the session. And then we're going to talk about how Lifecycle Management, our app, really enhances a service manager lifecycle. Again, I'll talk more about that. And then our migration services that we provide. And then we'll jump to Q&A. So real quick, let's jump to the announcements. Most of you are well aware, especially the service manager community, that Cireson has released free to the service manager community our self-service portal. If you were unaware of it, you're going to want to download this. You can just go out to cireson.com and register to download the free self-service portal. What's nice, it is not time-bound, so you can use it in your production environment. It provides HTML knowledge base, much more robust than what you have with Service Manager natively. Does come with dashboards. These are great dashboards for IT management you do have the ability to put security on these. So only certain persons in IT or in the organization can see these dashboards. So really great way to deliver information. Adaptive display. This is really cool. The portal is mobile friendly. So it is a great tool for end users from anywhere, any device, to access the self-service portal. Really, really helpful. They're not limited to just their desktop or a specific browser. We are browser and device agnostic. A couple of quick call outs. We've changed the URL to our software download site. I can't even remember what the previous site was, but the new site is softwaredownloads.cireson.com. If you're using the old URL, that's okay. It's going to redirect you to this new site, so I just wanted to point that out. Also, we have released the Cireson applications for 2016. 2016 Service Manager, they did change some of the code a little bit in there, which Cireson made some changes to our applications. So what that means to you is, one, hey, you could leverage Cireson applications for 2012, 2016, but because of the fact that we now have two separate code, one for 2016 and one for 2012, we've changed our versioning. So now when you are working within Service Manager, you're going to want to look at the specific version of the management packs and DLLs and so forth. It'll be in the version listed. It'll tell you whether it's 2012 or 2016 code within your version there. So when you go out to the software download site, there now are two downloads for each product. Obviously one if you're running 2012 or 2016 if you're running 2016. So you're going to want to download the appropriate version for your environment. And then you have a double check, because now you could check by looking at the versioning if things aren't running well. But I know that's not going to be the case with this audience. But nonetheless, just wanted to kind of point that out. Okay, so what's new in Service Manager 2016? I think for the most part everyone is somewhat familiar with that, but I'm going to do a quick call out on a number of the key features. And most of you are aware that, you know, from a functionality perspective, there's really not much change to Service Manager. I think the biggest gripe in the Service Manager community was performance, and Microsoft listened and actually made 2016 more of the changes are under the hood from a performance perspective. And the first of those being work item creation and update. There's been some tremendous performance improvements when it comes to creating and saving a work item, or updating and saving a work item. The workflow processing. The workflows in Service Manager have been drastically improved. They've redone the workflow engine. So great overall performance improvement there. When it comes to the work item per second processing capacity, Service Manager, the way that they've done it, they've made some tremendous improvements there, where now that processing capacity can handle up to, I think the stats are showing about 45 work items per minute that they can process, which is great. And it's really nice for the larger organizations that have massive amounts of work items per day, or organizations that have automated work item creation. You're going to see some improvements there. When it comes to groups and queues, from a security perspective, they've actually made some improvements. Actually, tests are showing up to about 50% reduction in time for the workflow and CIs to display to the associated users within those groups and queues. I don't know if anyone out here has used those before, but those could really drag down performance. So Microsoft made a great change there. As far as the console is uh, concerned, they've made some stability and performance improvements, as well as spell check. They've now added spell check to the console. Woohoo. Most people prefer to use Cireson's analyst portal, but if you're going to continue to use the out-of-the-box, you're going to see some console improvements, or out-of-the-box console improvements there. Uh, as far as the data warehouse, date dimensions have now been added, and this is about time that they've done this. Anyone who's done reporting with SQL analysis OLAP cubes from Service Manager have noticed that there's no way to slice and dice the data based on dates with that data. Why they left that functionality out of reporting, I have no idea, but they finally have added that in there. And those date dimensions are actually in the Service Manager work item cube, change in activity management cubes, as well as the service catalog cubes. So another great way to slice and dice the data based on date from a reporting perspective. Self-service portal, as everyone knows, Microsoft a while back ago with UR8 has released the HTML5 portal to replace the SharePoint portal. Is that important? No. Because the Cireson self-service portal is free out in the community and provides a lot more functionality and much more feature-rich. So we'll move on. No need to talk about the self-service portal there. When it comes to the connector performance or improvements here, they've actually done some great changes to the AD connector as well as the configuration manager connector. They have improved the speed tremendously. And actually, let me see here. I've got another picture that I wanted to show. Here's some stats from Microsoft. I think this was either on a TechNet, on TechNet, or it was on a blog. I can't remember, but these are Microsoft numbers here, so you can see that the ConfigMan connector itself has gone up or improved from a performance perspective of 67%. AD connector is 50%. That's actually tremendous. Now, a couple of things that I want to point out, and that is that you also have the ability to disable ECL logging when it comes to the connectors. That will help with performance as well. And then secondly, with database bloat, because a lot of times that's carrying over, it's making entries in the database for history, and it really causes database bloat. That ECL logging for the connectors, by the way, is enabled by default in 2016. If you want to improve performance, prevent a little database bloat, you're going to want to consider disabling that. You're going to want to look to see if you need the logs. If you don't need them, then you're going to want to disable that ECL logging. One other note to point out on the AD connector here, and actually I found out about this this week, so I thought I'd pass it along. Perfect timing to do it. That when and what we've seen is that there is a bug with the AD connector when you're trying to browse AD for like specific OUs. It doesn't happen all the time. It's intermittent, and it seemed to really come up when running on Server 2016 and SQL 2016 is when we noticed it. There is a TechNet article out there on this. There is a couple of simple fixes. If you do experience this, what they're suggesting is that you install the Visual C++ 2012 redistribution, or add the remote server admin tools to the server. That will help with that. So just something to pass along. So let's talk about why migrate. And I think that this is probably a good discussion here. So why migrate versus do an in-place upgrade? Well, as most of us know, your existing environment it probably contains a lot of things that you don't want to migrate over. Maybe you've done in-place upgrades from previous versions, 2010 and 2012 SP1 and then to 2012 R2. There's probably a lot of junk in there. And this is actually the perfect time to do a migration or start out fresh, a new start. And there's many reasons to do that. One, you can improve performance because you're only going to carry over the information that you need, such as active work items. Really, again, improving performance, preventing database bloat with unnecessary information. The opportunity to upgrade the OS and the database to the latest technology. And it can be done in a controlled fashion because remember, this is a migration. You're going to have a side-by-side implementation. You're going to have your production environment, and then you're going to have your eventually soon-to-be production environment. So it's the perfect opportunity to do that. Lessons learned from your past deployments, as we know, maybe it may not have been sized properly, architected properly, or even configured properly, but you've hobbled along all this time. Again, it's the perfect opportunity to go ahead and clean all that up. The same holds true with your processes, your workflows. Really examine those processes and workflows. And maybe at the time when you implemented Service Manager, those processes were right on cue with the business requirements. Well, it may have been some time. Business requirements change. The business changes. Maybe they could be done more efficiently or even streamlined for that matter. Again, you have the opportunity now to do that. As well as you might be multiple versions behind. So now you have to ask yourself, well, in order to do an in-place upgrade, because I'm so far behind in versions, do I have to do a number of interim updates? And if I do that, now I need to affect production multiple times, putting more risk to the business by doing that, as well as a good opportunity to potentially reclaim some of your virtualization resources based on maybe re-architecting or streamlining the architecture, as well as cleaning up your KB articles. I know that that's something that most people don't want to do, but again, it's another opportunity to clean up as much garbage and really streamline the new implementation so that you really can take advantage of a clean environment, improve performance, make reporting much more accurate and really provide accurate KPIs. You as an organization just need to kind of look back, and you're going to have other reasons too that are going to benefit the business to doing a migration. And if you decide to go with the migration, here's some steps to a worry-free migration. The first is obviously to stand up that base Service Manager 2016 environment. And then what you're going to want to do is just do some basic configurations. Some of you're going to want to configure your connectors, maybe some of your enumerator list. And as you can see, we're putting in estimated hours just to give you an idea. Now, it's going to vary depending upon the size of your organization, the architecture, what things you've done, and so forth. You're going to want to back up the current environment. I know most of the participants on this call are doing that today, but if not, as the best practices, we're always going to recommend that you back up the environment just to be safe. And then you're going to migrate your active work items, your management packs, customizations, and that's going to take time. More than likely, you're going to have to figure out what you need to migrate, a method or vehicle to do that, writing scripts, PowerShell scripts. You're going to have to figure out how to migrate all that data. And then once you figure that out, the time to actually do it. And if you can see in red, again, we've kind of come up with some rough hours as to how long that's going to take. And, 40 to 80 hours in most cases is probably an underestimate. But we put 40 to 80 hours in there. Again, it's going to depend on size. But if we automate that, we can bring those hours down dramatically. And how we can automate that is with our Lifecycle Management application, which Billy is actually going to demonstrate for you shortly here in a few minutes. And you'll really see how quick and easy it is to do this migration. And then obviously we're going to want to do our regression testing and make certain that everything is meeting the requirements, the design specs, and so forth. You're going to want to do that. And then once you decide to move forward with moving your newly created environment to the production phase, we're going to want to do a delta. We're going to want to copy and make certain that we have the most up-to-date work items and configurations. Again, you could do it manually, or you could use our Lifecycle Management tool to actually do that, that step of the migration. So what is the Lifecycle Management application? Well, it's a tool that Cireson has designed that can look at the source environment and take everything in that environment, including work items, management packs, and so forth, and it'll do it in an intelligent fashion with appropriate comparisons, checking, and even do exclusions. When it copies the work items, it'll take the work items, including any nested activities with those particular work items, the relationships for those work items in CI data. So we're going to also carry over the relationships. Any runbooks that you have, we're going to copy the runbook IDs over, enumerators that are stored in any management packs. We're going to copy those over, as well as your service catalog, including any service offerings, request offerings. We'll be able to carry that over. Any SLOs that you have created, we're going to copy those over. Now, we're going to also copy DLLs, and you say to yourself, well, what are the DLLs for? Well, a lot of times when you're installing additional items, management packs, sometimes those require DLLs that you copy to the file structure. This tool also looks to say, okay, well, we're copying this management pack. We need this DLL. It will also copy over the necessary DLLs as part of that process. Very intelligent tool. And it will also do comparison, version checks to say, well, it's more current on the destination, so I'm not going to overwrite it. Extremely intelligent application. So this really simplifies the migration from one environment to another. And because of that, I'm going to just briefly touch on these last two bullets because I'm going to talk more about this in slides to come. But this really here, this lifecycle management tool not only allows us to migrate from one environment to the other, but it's also a vehicle that we could leverage to actually migrate maybe production to a dev or test environment, and then follow the proper cycle. Again, I'm gonna table that for a moment, and we're gonna talk. I'll talk about that later. At this point, I'm going to hand the floor over to Billy, who will actually provide a demonstration on how the lifecycle management tool actually works. And I think that everyone's going to like what they see. So I'm gonna make Billy here a presenter. We're going to pass the baton. Thank you, Billy.
Appreciate that, Michael. Great job. Hope everybody can see my screen. what I have here, as Michael said, I'm a solutions architect with Cireson. What I have here is my personal lab that I use to check out all of our products and just see all the things that we do and be able to show the extensibility and the value that our products bring. So I have two servers in my lab that I'm going to show you today. One is my usual Service Manager 2012 R2 implementation that I have all of our Cireson products installed on. And as you can see in this instance, I have some connectors for asset management, some connectors for ConfigMan, stuff like that. If I come into management packs, you can see that I have all of our Cireson management packs from our applications, but I also have some custom management packs for some of my asset import stuff and some extensibility that I've added in. I have a couple of subscriptions in here. I have a service level objective in here. Once it comes up, there you go. And then of course in the library I have the list of enumerations that I have filled out, and those will get copied over with the one notable exception in the list enumeration of incident tier queue, because unfortunately with Service Manager 2012 R2, as a lot of you probably already know, Microsoft set up the list enumeration for incident tier queue inside a default service pack. So that one actually isn't getting migrated over. So I would recommend, if you're going to do a migration over to 2012 or 2016, excuse me, go ahead and replicate just that incident tier queue manually. The rest of your enumeration list should come over just fine with the Lifecycle Migration app. You'll see that I have request offerings that I have in my lab environment. And of course I have specialized templates that I use for request offerings and the like. So we'll look in my work items. I have some active work items in my environment. I have work items you can see from my active work items view. I have a bunch of manual activities, some review activities, problems, service request, change. So a myriad of data in there that I've been using to be able to both work with and familiarize myself with all of our new apps as they come out, and to be able to pass that knowledge on to others. And then of course in my lab I have our asset management piece. So you can see that I have imported in hardware assets from ConfigMan. I've added some in myself. And so I have a pretty hydrated, for a desktop Hyper-V level lab environment that I can use as a source to be able to migrate over. So I'm going to click over to my target environment, which is Service Manager 2012, or I'm sorry, 2016. So what we have here is Service Manager 2016 environment, very out of the box, very bare bones. The only thing I've added in advance were my AD connector, ConfigMan connector, and orchestrator connector. I also added in, I reset up the tier queue in the list environment. So if I go into incident tier queue here, you'll see that I've added those manually because of the limitation that I kind of mentioned a little bit before. I don't have any queues set up. I don't have any extra templates set up. The request offerings you're going to notice are the out-of-the-box request offerings. We go into work items, incidents, no incidents, no work items here. So I haven't added anything to this. It's funny, I kind of feel like a magician telling you there's nothing up my sleeve. So let's go into hardware assets. Nothing in here. So it's pretty clean, pretty straightforward, just exactly how you're going to want it when you do a migration from 2012 to 2016. So seeing that, we're going to see the Lifecycle Management app in action now. Excuse me. So I'm going to pull it up. This is the executable that runs. I'm going to run it in administrator mode, so that allows the DLLs to be copied over and get past, Windows really fun security. And so I'm going to put in my source server, which is the one I just showed you, target server, which is the one I'm on. And the cool thing about being on being able to input a source in a target server is the fact I could run this from either one. I am going to select all work items, configuration items, management packs, file settings, and templates. You have the option of creating an error if an extended class field doesn't exist on the target. You can run it in multi-threaded mode, and if you'll notice, every time I hover over one of these, it gives you a little explanation of what it's for, so we don't, leave you completely guessing on how this thing works. This actually speeds up the copy a little bit. Smart type projections give you the ability to really reach in there and get your relationships and have them put back in the target, and then enumeration value options, and of course the ability to specify where this log file is going to be. One of the really cool things I like about this application, you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute, is not only is it going to give you real-time status of how the migration is going, but it also gives you a hard copy log of everything that you just saw, and the ability to go back through it and see how everything went, and if you have any issues where they might be. So now we go into the kind of the details of what's going to be migrating. So it starts off with the management packs, the files and settings. I'm going to go ahead and check to continue copying management packs even if one fails to import. You definitely have an option there. Copy the DLL files from the sources program files SESM directory to the target if they don't exist. Now I'm going to pause for a second and expound a little bit on this management pack and file setting thing. One of the cool things that they built into this app is the ability for the application to notice that the target instance of Service Manager's DLL files and management packs are of a more current version than the source. So once it sees that, it's not going to copy that over. So you're not going to be overwriting more current management packs and DLLs with less current ones, and which is really good for this demonstration because we had to basically release updated versions of all our applications for 2016 compatibility. So if it tried to copy over those types of files from 2012 to 2016, they'd actually stop working. So this natively has the intelligence to be able to not do that and cause us any issues. I want to go ahead and relate my request offerings and service offerings. I want to bring in my runbook activities and match them up with the runbook parameters. That way, any orchestrator runbooks, and I'm sure if you've been using Service Manager for any length of time, you're using orchestrator runbooks. But any orchestrator runbooks that are set up, it'll allow those to reconnect. All you would have to do is go into orchestrator and just basically change the server you're pointing to in the configuration. It allows us to bring over our service level objectives, and I'm going to go ahead and copy over our SESM setting items. So let's click next. For the purposes of this webinar, I'm going to go ahead and only copy over my active items so this doesn't run too long, but I'm going to copy over everything that's active in incident service requests, all my work item types. I'm going to bring over all my relationship options. I'm going to bring on all my custom inherited classes, and I'm even going to bring in file attachments. And as Michael mentioned earlier, if you were using this Lifecycle Management app on a continuing basis to hydrate your development environment with production data, that way you could do all your development with real-time type data without actually messing around in production. A lot of times, unless you're going to be working directly with file attachments, you may not want to copy those over because that's going to fill your database. So you have that ability there. One thing you're going to notice on this, and I'll point it out, is there's an option to attempt to use the same work item ID numbers. Now, in this current version, this option is grayed out, and with good reason, because in our development, we've noticed that can tend to cause some issues. So the developers are working on trying to find a way to make that work in a practical manner, but for the purposes of this demonstration, we're not going to have that done. So what that means is when the work items do get copied over to the target environment, they may have different work item ID numbers because Service Manager is going to auto-assign those. So let's click Next. I want to copy over all of my Cireson asset items, but I do have the ability to just target specific items. And then, of course, I do want to bring in all my relationship stuff. And I don't really want to halt copying an item because I've run this before and it's not going to do this in my lab, but the options exist for you. One thing you'll note down here, it says for best performance, computer and user CI objects can be imported by the connector on the target server beforehand. I've actually done that, and it does make a difference in the performance of this when a lot of those target CIs already exist and simply need to be updated. So I'm going to click Next. You get the ability right here to review all your settings and then, of course, go back, make any changes you think you actually need to make. And I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. It's going to ask me to confirm. I'm going to say yes, and it's going to jump to it. Again, like I mentioned earlier, you'll notice that it is giving me real-time data feed of exactly what's going on. This application starts off by copying all of your sealed management packs first, then it'll move on to unsealed. And you'll get to see, you know, step by step how things are going as this is going through.
You know what? While this is going through, I just want to go through one of the questions that is asked. And actually, Jonathan asked this question. Great question. Jonathan wants to know if history data will be available for work items that are transferred from one environment to the other using the Lifecycle Management application. Great question, Jonathan. And the answer to that is it does copy the action log information, any communications between the end user, the analyst, emails, things of that nature that are stored in the action log, it will transfer those over. As far as the history is concerned of that work item, it does not transfer the history, and that's because the way that the history within Service Manager is stored, it makes it very difficult to capture that information, so therefore it is only capturing the action log. So great question. There's also, Rick is asking a question here. I'm going to go ahead and answer these questions as we're going through the migration here because I think this is going to be a perfect time. Rick here is asking the question, does the Lifecycle Management app also migrate the data warehouse to the new environment? The short answer to that is no, and the reason being is because we really didn't find a need for that. And what I mean by that is that a lot of times the information in the data warehouse may have incorrect information because of junk from the previous environment. Therefore, KPIs were really not very accurate. So what happens is that when we migrate the work items to Service Manager in the new environment, you're still obviously going to set up a new 2016 data warehouse server, and through the normal jobs of the data warehouse, it will then populate the data warehouse with the work items and the data that you've migrated from the old environment to the new. So therefore, you're going to have much more accurate reporting on that information. As far as old reporting is concerned, if you needed information from closed work items and things of that nature, you would have to run parallel for a little bit until eventually that environment is phased out. But great question. Great question. Let me see. Are all the work items copied? Okay. Evan is asking if when the work items are copied, does it retain the work item ID? What it's going to do is it is going to look at all of the work item numbering, and it's going to, the tool, it's going to organize it, and when it migrates it over, It is going to create a new work item ID. It's not going to be a one-to-one match. It will be in a proper sequence. The way that the service manager was architected, and I know that it makes it very difficult and puts the database at risk if you try to do that. I know that that's been one of the gripes with the service manager community for years now, where you cannot force certain work item IDs. And at this point, it's not going to copy over the exact work item ID over. Great question. Let's see here. How are we doing here, Billy?
We're doing good. We've gone through the management packs now. We're doing some run books. It's already copied the DLLs. So now it's going to start getting into the templates and settings and stuff like that before it moves into configuration items and work items.
Excellent, excellent. Jeff here is asking a question. Does it copy roles and members and custom views? Great question, Jeff. So as far as the security is concerned, at this time it is not copying over the security. And again, what we found is that most firms want to redo their security in the new environment because they're basically re-architecting everything. They really want to start out fresh. So we really haven't had a demand or a need to do the role-based security. So that is something that you would want to configure and re-architect to better suit the more current business requirements. It will copy over the views. You asked about custom views. As long as those are stored in management packs and the proper management packs, absolutely is that going to carry over. So great question. So let's see here. We've got another question. The questions keep rolling in. And stop me here, Billy, if...
No, that's good. Questions are good. We love interaction. Okay.
Mentioned that the incident category does not pull over. Actually, I don't know, Billy, if you want to jump in on this. Kevin is asking that you mentioned a few minutes ago that the incident category doesn't pull over.
No, I mentioned that the incident tier queue.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So if you want to elaborate that it does take the category and what enumerator list it is not copying over.
Yeah, the enumerator list that doesn't copy over is the incident tier queue because that is one that's kept inside of the default incident management pack. And because this is obviously a newer version of Service Manager, it's not going to copy that default out-of-the-box management pack over, which is why you have to do it. But to the best of my knowledge, the all other enumerations, when you add or make changes to the enumeration list, prompt you to put it in a new service pack, and those service packs are migrated over. So it should absolutely bring over the incident classification enumeration, and as a matter of fact, we can take a look at that pretty much right now because we're done. This is completed migrating, and everything is set up here, and right now I have the ability obviously to perform another migration, or I can check out my log. So I can pull up my log file, which by default for me will launch a notepad, and now I have a hard copy of everything that was done, everything that you saw scrolled through, which is really handy. And I'm going to go ahead and close this, and then I'm going to go ahead and launch the console, and let's see what we got. So again, you know, the System Center 2016, bringing it up. And maybe just a touch slower because now it's got data. Okay, so we look in our connectors, so we noticed that a couple of my connectors came over. The connectors that didn't come over were ones that I had disabled. So, and these are the connectors are the asset management connectors because those are kept in a separate management pack, whereas the default connectors are kept in their own management pack, which is why those don't get copied over. But if I look in my management packs, hey, now I'm starting to see, here's my asset imports, here's some of the custom management, sealed and unsealed management packs that I had. All of my Cireson management packs, sealed management packs, again, didn't get copied over because these are newer versions that are compatible with 2016. I look in my notifications. Hey, there are my subscriptions. I look at my service level. There's my service level objective. If I open it up, it shows me my class. It shows me the queues, so the queues came over, and it shows me the criteria that I had. So, and let's take a look at the settings real quick. So if I come into incident settings, I can see that my default support group is now the correct support group, and my priority calculation matrix is there. So I don't have to reset that up again. If I come into my library, again, you can see my queue. You can see that here's my manual activity support group list, which is a customization enumeration. So that's in there. If I come into, let's come into instant classification, take a look at that. Okay, this does not show, but that may be, we can take a look at that, but that may be because I didn't configure that, go so far as to configure that. My service catalog, request offerings, publish request offerings. Here are my request offerings. My templates. I can see some of my customized templates in there. Work items. Let's go into my incidents. Here are the incidents. Let's open one up and take a look. So you'll notice that my relationships are here. My incident data is here. My relationships are here. Assigned to, affected user. My affected user CI is here. So any related items exist in there. My analyst time got put in. Any service level information, which this doesn't qualify for the service level object that I had created, so it wouldn't show up in that. Let's look in my active work items, which, by the way, is a custom view type. And to answer your question about custom views, I'll give you a second, but you can see all the other incident types that I had over there that were active are still here. Anything that was closed didn't come over because I didn't set it to do that. This Cireson knowledge base is actually a custom view that I created in my source because somebody asked me the question, Cireson's knowledge base in our self-service portal is actually kept in our Cireson Cache Builder database, so they wanted to know if we could expose that knowledge base within the console for people who still use it. So with the Cireson View Builder, you're able to create a web-based view, which is what I did here, to be able to bring that information in, and it showed up. But it may or may not, it's probably not going to ask me for a prompt because it's looking for a different URL. So let's move on to configuration items, and let's see if my assets made it. So I'm going to come into hardware assets. Hey, there we are. Here are all my assets. Let's open one up. Here's my hardware asset for the server. My primary user relationship is still there. My enumerations that were created are still there. My location relationship, organization relationship, all of those still there. My warranty relationship information, all there. So as you can see, this got everything I told it to get. So let's look at one more thing just for grins. I'm going to go ahead and recycle the Cireson Cache Builder service because I did install our analyst and self-service portal on this updated 2016 instance with our 2016 compatible version. So I'm going to restart the service real quick so it'll populate the cache builder with our new data that we just migrated over, and let's see how we did in the portal. So I'm going to open the portal. And log in, making a connection. Here's work items. So those are already showing up. That's good news. Let's go to home. Hey, here are my request offerings. Here's my onboarding request. Turn that on, and look at that. There's my form. These are asset query list values. So all the information is here. I just had to do a little bit of preliminary setup from the target side because they were different versions, but you can see the data all got transferred over. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it right back over to Mike to close us out. Michael.
Thank you, sir. I'll go ahead and make myself a presenter here.
I can surely do that.
We are good. Hopefully everyone can see my screen again.
Yep.
Excellent. Thank you, Billy, and appreciate the demonstration. Very beneficial. So let's talk about Service Manager Lifecycle. And really what's a life cycle? Really it's supporting change management. It's the change management process. So many of us today have a service manager environment, but we don't have a test or dev, or maybe at one point we did have a test or dev environment, but unfortunately fell out of sync and is no longer a mirrored image of production. So almost what's the point of doing proper ITIL best practices to go from dev to test to change? And here's where the real value for the service manager or the lifecycle management tool, because this tool now allows you to create your proper dev and test environment and then migrate the data, or not even the data, maybe just the configurations. Who cares about the work items? Maybe you don't need those. All you care about are management packs, DLLs, enumerator list, the real core to the environment. And you can now leverage the lifecycle management tool to properly build your dev and test environments. And what's now really nice is that you can follow the change management process because you have a proper dev and test environment. And not only can you leverage the tool to build out your dev and test environment, but now you have, as you know, a vehicle to deliver changes from your dev environment to test and test to prod in a proper fashion. One of the gaps with Service Manager is even if you did have a proper dev and test environment and even a process to move from dev to test, it's all manual process. You have to make certain you know which DLLs to copy, what management packs, what enumerator lists to update, what service requests to add, and so forth. It's a complete manual process, whereas now the lifecycle management tool provides a vehicle for you to, one, keep your dev and test environments in sync with production at all time, and allows you a vehicle to deliver changes to the appropriate environment while meeting ITIL best practices for change management. So very, very powerful, not only from a migration perspective to go to 2016, but also a long-term ongoing tool to really help you meet ITIL best practices with change management. So very, very key there. Something to keep in mind. Really provides a lot of value there. One of the things that I wanted to talk about as well is our migration services. Got to do a little plug for our service delivery team. And what does the service delivery team offer? We offer upgrade services, migration services, as well as pre and post migration health checks. Very, very important on the health check there, people. Keep that in mind. You want to make certain that your environment that you're migrating to or upgrading is in proper health. You don't want to migrate to something that's rather sickly. So do keep that in mind. And why do you need our help? Well, obviously, we're the experts. We do this on a daily basis. We have the experience. That's one of our big focuses, as you know. And we have the tools to do it quickly, accurately, and obviously because we do this on a day-to-day basis, we just have the knowledge to do it quickly and really save your firm money. I mean, yeah, you could do it on your own. You could learn as you go to go through this process, but you're going to go through that knowledge process and learning all the pitfalls, and then once you're done with the migration, you've spent all that time and effort, and you're not going to utilize that for a long time coming. And even if you do migrate again, chances are it's going to be a different version, different process, different technology. So if you're considering migrating, please do reach out to Cireson or one of Cireson's partners. You may be working with them. If you're not familiar with them, please go out to cireson.com and you can check to see who the partners are in your area. I want to give a little plug on the Cireson community here. Cireson has provided a community forum. I think most of the attendees are already subscribed and leverage the community forum. For those that do not, it is a forum that is available for customers, partners, and Cireson employees as well as industry experts to post questions, to answer questions. Really, really helpful. It's a community that really try to help each other out, and I think they do a wonderful job with that. And there's many different forums, not just service management, but asset, system center, cloud, our password reset solution. Great forum for you to go to. Now, one thing that I want to mention is that with this forum, we also, this is where you would make requests to enhance the products or add feature enhancements. Most software companies, when you do a feature request, it kind of falls into a black hole, or unless you're some huge company, that's the only time that they'll react, when they can see dollars. Again, that's how most software companies work. Cireson's different. You post a service request, or I'm sorry, a feature request out on this community forum, everyone votes on it. Partners, other customers, just the list goes on and on and on. And they may say, hey, that's a great idea, but we could even further enhance it, and what do you think if you add this functionality to it? And then people vote on it. Cireson looks at that, and actually that's how we get the feedback to enhance our product. And actually, we've just released version 7, and if I understand correct, 7.1 is coming out, and 7.1 is going to have a number of feature enhancements based off of the feature request from the community forum. So do keep that in mind. If you haven't joined, join now. And I'll provide you the link for that. That's actually, let's take a step back. I mentioned the Vimeo.com. I post this video out there. That is actually going to be out at Vimeo.com. You could also go to Vimeo.com here, Team Cireson, or search Cireson or Team Cireson. Community forum, if you haven't been there, there is the URL. It's community.cireson.com. Definitely encourage you to do that. If you were unaware, Cireson has made the Inc. 5000 list as one of the fastest growing companies. Actually, I think we ranked 167 out of 5,000, so we're really excited about that. If you want to find out more, go out to Inc. 5000. There's one of the URLs there. If you want to find out more about the Cireson platform, obviously go out to cireson.com. Also, I want to point out that the Lifecycle Management tool, if you want to find out more information on pricing or licensing, cireson.com. Contact us from there. We're more than happy to talk to you on that tool, along with any other solution that you and your organization may be interested in, as well as if you're going to go out to support, we're at support.cireson.com. I don't think I need to go more on that. Cireson is hiring, so if you think you have what it takes, please do submit a resume to us. Browse our open opportunities. Or if you just want to email us, just to email us, reach us at team@cireson.com. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to questions and answers here. I know that there are quite a few questions here pending, and I'm going to pick up where I left off. And Stacy's asking a good question here. Stacy's asking, do custom fields from the extensions tab carry over? As long as those are in a management pack, which they're going to be or should be, then yes, they will carry over, definitely. Evan is asking a question, will Cireson publish a list of what does not come over one-to-one? Good question, Evan. I can talk to the marketing team and see if we can put something like that together, if that would make that easier for you. I can't make any promises because that is up to marketing, but nonetheless, I will see what I can do. Rashid is looking to see here, according to, he's got a good, interesting question, because I've never heard this one. According to Microsoft, a side-by-side migration is not supported in Service Manager 2016. The only option is an in-place upgrade. Does this tool allow for a full side-by-side migration? I would say, for the most part, it's going to do a side-by-side migration. It depends what your definition of full is, but as you saw Billy demonstrate, it's going to copy over really the key items that you need for a successful migration. Again, you're going to want to build out your base 2016 environment, do your security, your AD connectors, really things that you could accomplish in a very, very short period of time, and then with our tools, then migrate over. Absolutely. Great question. Okay, let's go down the list here, and let me look at time here. We're a little bit over. I appreciate everyone staying on. Let's see here. I'm going down here looking. Let's see.
The next question would be, are we able to target resolved incidents and completed SRs to be migrated from the 2012 server? Would you recommend sticking to live work items only? And that question was from Paul. The answer to the first part of that question is yes, you are able to target and copy over resolved incidents and completed SRs. Would we recommend sticking to live work item only? To be honest with you, I think, and Michael can chime in on this as well, I think that entirely depends on your situation. I mean, staying with only active data does keep you a cleaner, leaner, meaner environment, but it simply may not be an option. You may need to have all of that data in one place, instead of having, inactive work items in a different still in a database that's accessible for reporting, but maybe not in a live environment.
Yeah, and
But
Billy, you definitely hit the nail on the head. It comes down to business requirements. You know, the tool provides the option of doing active work items or closed work items. That's, yeah, it's all based on your product, a process, and you know, whether from a reporting or audit perspective, it needs to be available. If it's not, then you have the option of migrating that data over or not. And you definitely hit the nail on the head when it comes to, you know, it's up to the business requirements. Cireson has no recommendation whether to do it or not. It's all, again, based on your requirements. Bill, you want to take the next one, or shall I take that one?
No, I'll take it.
Okay,
as
cool.
the incident tier queue doesn't copy over, if you set them up on the new server, will they intelligently match up with the new server, or will we have to manually map the live IRs to the refreshed IR tier group on the new server? And that, again, that's from Paul. So Paul, what I experienced with this is that what I did in my lab environment is, instead of having tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, I renamed those and then added child support groups underneath that. In the version that I used for this demonstration, the ones that existed, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, did come over in renamed fashion and did map, but the ones that were child did not. I'm making a note of that, and we'll get with the developer to make sure that when we do release the product, that that issue does get resolved. And
Jeff is asking a question here, and I think I'll take.
Actually,
I'm sorry.
Actually, Jeff, if you scroll down to the bottom, Jeff answers his own question, and his answer is absolutely accurate. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay, but I just want to touch on this. Jeff, you are right, and so is Billy. That data will come over. But what we found is, well, first off, let me mention the question. Jeff is asking if Provence asset management data will come across, because they're actually using Provence. Then the short answer to that is, and Jeff actually answered it in a couple of comments below, that yes, it will come over because it's in management packs. It will come over. However, you can migrate it, but what we have found is a lot of times when customers are migrating from Provence, that typically the data, they're not happy or comfortable or believe in the accuracy of the data. So you can migrate it, but we also have mechanisms where we can kind of just export what we need that the customer feels is accurate, and we can import that into the system. In a sense here, what we're doing is we're using the Lifecycle Management tool to migrate and do a side-by-side migration, but we could eliminate you know, some of that data and then manually copy that data over, such as the Provence data. So hopefully that gives you a little more clarification there. Rick is asking, are the last modified date values preserved on the work items so that the DB grooming will not be interrupted? Let me think about that one. Are the last modified date?
So that's an interesting question from the point of view of, when I did my dry run copy over, it did indeed, the last modified dates did copy over successfully, but during this particular demo, I'm showing my last modified dates as being changed to this one. So we will get a definitive on what's happening with that and get back to you on that one.
Great. And I think our last question is Rashid. He's asking what the cost of the tool is. Great question. And again, the tool is scheduled for release next week. So please do reach out to us, because the pricing and licensing will be finalized at that time. and we can have a one-to-one discussion with you regarding that pricing. But great question, and thank you very much for bringing that up, Rashid. So I think that's it for the questions. I do know that we are over on time by 10 minutes, and I can't thank everyone enough for attending today's session and also staying over. I hope that you found today's webinar beneficial, and we actually look forward to talking with you next week, because we're hoping you're going to reach out to us. Again, thank you for attending, and have yourself a great day.